Frieren stands, side by side with her old friends, next to the body of Himmel the hero. It has been 50 years since the four of them defeated the Demon King together, bringing an end to their decade-long journey. To most, 50 years would be more than half a lifetime, but for Frieren, it's equivalent to the blink of an eye due to her lifespan as an elf, allowing her to have lived over a millennium without so much as a wrinkle to show for it. She's lost hundreds of people over her lifetime, causing her to not feel sadness when somebody passes on. But there's an undeniable feeling welling up inside of her when Himmel dies, a feeling of regret. She traveled with him, Heiter the priest and Isen the warrior, for 10 years. Over that decade, Frieren made more precious memories than she had in 1,000 years. Memories that will last her the rest of her life. She made true friends, friends that cared for her and showed her love, no matter how standoffish she was to them. They taught her that wandering around endlessly would only lead to a life of loneliness and sorrow. In other words, they taught her how to be happy. And how does Frieren repay their kindness? By leaving them as soon as the quest is over, not showing her face for half a century, only returning to fulfill a promise. She didn't learn anything about one of her only friends, the friend who cared so much for her, but now she can't because they're gone. Even though I knew human lives were so short, why didn't I try to get to know him better? After Himmel's funeral, the remaining members of the hero's party once again go their separate ways. Frieren sets out on her own, but this time with a purpose. I think I am going to get to know humans better as well. One might think that Frieren's journey ended 50 years ago, but in reality, it is only just beginning. After the defeat of the Demon King, the world began an era of peace like none before it, a peace that Frieren basks in. As a mage, it is almost required for her hobby to be spell collecting to further her knowledge of magic. Though the spells she collects are peculiar ones, such as a spell that can turn red apples into green, make it so you don't trip up while saying tongue twisters, or make paper airplanes fly really far. A lot of these spells might sound useless, but in reality, yeah, they're pretty much useless, but Frieren wouldn't have it any other way. She has a deep love for magic, willing to go to great lengths just to obtain any inkling of knowledge. Though you may not see it at first. She initially comes off as emotionless and cold-hearted, rarely cracking so much as a smile. It doesn't help that she's never understood basic social or emotional cues that most elves lack. Frieren's sense of time is hypersonic compared to humans due to her incredibly long lifespan. Days, months, or years can go by without her even realizing it. So why bother making friends since everybody you meet or create an attachment to will inevitably die soon anyways? This is the mindset Frieren had until Himmel passed, up until she made the promise to get to know humans better. Frieren's love for strange, meaningless spells is very representative of her character as well. It shows how willing she is to seek out things considered worthless by society, discarded, and passed from hand to hand only as a burden. She seeks out and gives them hope, showing them love for the first time, just like her friends did for her many years ago. Of course, this love isn't exclusively for spells. It extends to people as well. Throughout her travels, Frieren picks up a few abandoned societal outcasts, people who are thrown out to fend for themselves. Despite her little understanding of human emotion, she discovers that she has a natural talent for leadership and mentoring. Even fully knowing she may outlive her apprentices, she takes them in anyways because she likes their company. She enjoys seeing them grow up and experience the wonders that she did for the first time. She slowly but surely begins to fulfill her goal of understanding humans and getting to know them better. Luckily, it's paying off, as she can find a new beauty in life that she could never have all on her own. 20 years after Himmel's death and Frieren's vow to get to know humans better, she visits her old friend and former party companion, Heiter the priest, who is miraculously still alive. Heiter follows the ironic drunkard priest trope, and you'd think his alcoholism would have caught up to him. Yet, unexpectedly, he put that all behind. He never really cared about an early grave since he didn't fear death, but now he has someone to care for. When she lost her family and home due to war at a very young age, Fern saw it fit to end her own life. Thankfully, Heiter stopped her before she could. I think it would be a waste for you to die now. He takes Fern under his wing, raising her as his own daughter. When Frieren discovers this, she comments on how uncharacteristic this altruistic action was. Heiter agrees, saying that he's had a change of heart in recent times. Even when Heiter traveled for 10 years to defeat the Demon King, he did so for a selfish reason, to guarantee his spot in heaven. He lived selfishly his entire life, always expecting something in return when he helped others. He didn't realize he was doing so until Himmel, somebody who lived his entire life altruistically and never took a selfish action, died of old age. More people would have been saved if he had lived on instead of me. So Heiter decides to take a chance and carry on Himmel's memory, the memory of helping others just to help them. Frieren chooses to do the same thing by taking on Fern as her apprentice after Heiter's passing. Together, they journey the continent not only in search of magic, but for those who require help, but mainly so they can get some more magic. You would think, having potentially lived for eons, Frieren's mannerisms would be very refined and ladylike, especially in a medieval setting, though you would be wrong. Despite not even being a 100th of her age, Fern often ends up acting like Frieren's mother, by ensuring she gets out of bed on time, braids her hair, and doesn't spend all their money on useless things. Her frequent habits can be quite bothersome to Fern. Still, it's this sweet family dynamic between the two that really makes the story feel whole, especially when you add Stark into the mix. When he was little, Stark grew up surrounded by the countless warriors and heroes that his village trained. None such were as great as his older brother. Even though Stark was often very clumsy and cowardly, his brother never missed an opportunity to encourage him, yet his father did not do the same. He placed high expectations on Stark, and his brother's outstanding achievements only made those expectations weigh down on him heavier. These feelings continued to boil up in him until the demons attacked his village one night, slaughtering everyone in their path. Stark's older brother told him to run away, while he held the demons back. Stark does just that, leaving everything he's ever known behind. A feeling of immense guilt has permeated within him ever since. Even though his brother told him to run, knowing full well he would have been killed if he tried to fight, Stark still can't quite let go of the past. That is, until he crosses paths with Frieren and Fern. He initially comes to them begging for help to fight off a dragon attacking a local village. Stark believes that he is far too weak to kill it, but doesn't just want to up and abandon the people. Frieren sees the good in him, and also the talents, accepting his request. As it turns out, his fears are unfounded, as Stark kills the dragon in a single blow. He joins the party as their vanguard, though he serves a much greater purpose: a new member of the family. Every character of Frieren's new party has a real humanity that makes them all interesting, but what makes them compelling is when they are all together, functioning like a real family. They talk, laugh, cry, argue, get mad, frustrated, but in the end, they always pull through no matter what, because they care for each other. While I don't dislike the continuous multi-chapter spanning arcs that Frieren has to offer, I can't help but be naturally compelled by the smaller one-chapter stories that show the group going about their day-to-day lives. Chapter 65 embodies this. After traveling for some time, Frieren decides to treat Stark and Fern to a nearby hot spring she visited many years ago, though when she arrives, the hot springs have all dried up since then. One of the locals says the one hot spring is still left, all the way up at the top of the mountains, though another town a week's walk away has hot springs, so Frieren decides to move ahead. Before they can, Stark says that he would like to visit that hot spring in the mountains, for some strange reason. Frieren warns him that the hot spring might not even exist anymore, but Stark insists. So they make their way up the hills in a very arduous journey, often interrupted by monsters and dragons. Ultimately, they reach the hot spring, if you would call it that. It's comedically shallow, only high enough to stick your feet in. Still, they do their best to enjoy it, and their now picturesque view. Fern questions as to why Stark was so adamant about coming. He explains that after he ran away from his village, he was taken in as an apprentice by Eisen, the same one that traveled with Frieren in the hero party. Eisen always had stories to tell Stark of his adventures with Frieren in the gang, but there were very few about grand battles or fabulous treasures. Often the stories he told were little mundane ones. Even if things didn't always end in satisfaction, Eisen nonetheless cherished them as joyous memories. So Stark decides that he wants to do that. The real reward wasn't the hot springs, but the memories he created with his new family. Though, as I mentioned before, the story of Frieren can drag on in some long connected arcs. Arcs like the Demon Infiltration arc and the Mage Exam arc could be better? Frieren's true narrative strength comes from the smaller one-chapter narratives I discussed. Whenever I'm reading one of the longer battle arcs, I can't help but wish the story would return to the one-chapter narratives. The longer arcs lack the regular substance and development that the one-chapter arcs do, as oftentimes characters that I would like to see, like Stark, are left out. Though there is one longer arc that is an exception, the El Dorado arc. At first look, the world of Frieren is a basic fantasy world, especially for anime. It checks every box humanly possible: castles, magic, dragons, elves, dwarves, churches, and heroes. Though the more you dive into Frieren, the more you unravel its layers. Not in terms of magic systems or lore, but just in terms of characters. None exemplify this more than the demons. Demons in Frieren are precisely what you would expect, beings that are the incarnation of pure evil. They kill and slaughter hundreds of humans, whether that be for food, dominance, or pure sport. These evil actions are entirely justified in their eyes, because it's all they have ever known. The concepts of justice, sin, and sadness are foreign to them, so they will never be able to coexist with other races. Though they have developed a grasp of human speech, they do not see it as a tool to communicate, but as a tool to manipulate. One such instance involved Frieren and her old hero party on their travels after they took out a horde of lesser demons attacking a village. It looked rather sad and helpless, while repeating one phrase, "It really hurts, mother." Frieren was about to execute the demon before the village chief stepped in, saying that if they kill her, they're no better than the demons. Himmel agrees, but decides that the party should watch the girl closely. The demon generally lived like all other children in the village, just as long as it takes for the party to let their guard down. One night, she kills the village chief and his wife, taking the daughter hostage for escape, though Himmel is far stronger than any demon, cutting her down where she stands. As the demon bleeds out, it still cries, "Mother." Though Frieren finds this curious, considering demons don't know their parents. "Why are you using the word mother?" she asks. The demon replies, "Well, that way, you wouldn't be able to kill me anymore, right? It's a powerful, practically magical word." The demon didn't even know the meaning of the word mother, or even what a mother was. She just knew that humans would pity her if she used it. Since the demon's king defeat almost a century ago, his old followers have begun to resort to more dishonorable means of taking over the world. That is by convincing the humans that they want peace, exploiting their naturally kind nature, and slaughtering them when their backs are turned. This is the new age of demons Frieren and her party now has to face, a threat they have no choice but to stop. Though there's one demon that stands out from the rest, that demon being Macht. Before the defeat of the Demon King, Macht was considered one of the 7 sages of destruction, making him one of the most potent and distinguished members of the Demon King's army. Though to have considered him loyal to the Demon King would be wrong. In truth, he couldn't care less about the fight between demons and humans. Macht doesn't even find excitement in battle, thinking it to be boring since he can end any conflict without effort by turning people into gold. Though this does not mean that he finds killing humans immoral, he still considers them toys to be played with. He has never understood the concepts of guilt or malice. I mean, how could he? He is a demon after all. When the Demon King is defeated, Macht has no allegiance, so he finds it best to try and coexist with the humans. In a way, he is just like Frieren, somebody who vowed to get to know humans better, to truly understand them. He goes about slaughtering as many men, women, and children as possible to understand any guilt or remorse, though to no success. One day, Macht attacks a rich man's carriage. "You do not reek of blood, and yet you bear the eyes of a killer." The man in question is a royal politician named Gluck. As a politician, he has sent hundreds of people to their graves, all because of his malice towards others. But now in his older age, all of his malice has dissipated. It has been replaced by the deep regret of his sins that he will never be able to rectify. Macht finds Gluck interesting and decides to not only let him live, but to follow and serve him as his right-hand man, to learn the feeling of malice and guilt. Macht also becomes a servant to the great city of Weiss. He becomes a much beloved figure amongst the people, defending the city from his own kind, who attempt to take it. Decades pass as Macht attempts to bring himself to understand these foreign emotions. He learns that to feel his guilt, he must destroy something close to him that he cherishes. That thing being Gluck, the city of Weiss, and its people. Gluck accepts his fate because he has always known that this day would come. After all, he agreed to help Macht no matter what. I will stay with you until you do understand, even if that means going to the depths of hell. The city and all of its residents are transmuted into pure gold. Macht was something that completely caught me off guard. I didn't expect a wholesome story about a magical elf and her companions to have one of the most compelling villains in any shonen manga I've ever read, who made such a significant impact despite his super short presence in the story. This shows how you can never guess where the story of Frieren and her little family will go, but I can't wait to see it.